All right, Math 1, Unit 7, Elimination. Only now we're going to be doing a little bit more hard elimination. So in the last one, they were all set up to where we either had to just add or subtract them, and then they'd go away. One of the variables would be eliminated. This one, we look, our x's and our y's, neither of them are set up to be eliminated. So we're going to have to decide which one do we want to eliminate. The way that we do that is we multiply one of them by something to make them the other one. So we look at this negative 3 here. We could turn that into a 6. Right? We could turn that into a 6 by multiplying by 2. So let's do that. If we multiplied everything here by 2, we'd turn this into a, well, the top stays the same, 6x plus 10y is negative 18. The bottom piece turns into a negative 6x minus 4y equals 0. Now we have a 6x and a negative 6x, and we can eliminate, and it's just like the problems in the last section. Now we could also, if you look here, we could have used our 10 and our 2 by multiplying by 5. Right? Do you see that? 5 and 2 gives us a 10. Either way works, it really doesn't matter, and they will always give you the same answer. So I normally just go with whatever is easiest for me. I think that multiplying by 2 is easier than multiplying by 5, so that's why I went with that. So I add these together, that gives me 0x plus 6y equals negative 18. Negative 18 divided by 6 gives me 3. Negative 3. So my y is negative 3. I'm going to plug into one of them. I think it's pretty obvious that it would be easier to plug into the bottom one, right? They have smaller numbers. So I'm going to have, well, negative 3x minus 2 times negative 3 is 0, right? There's my y. So negative 3x plus 6 is 0. Negative 3x is negative 6, and x is 2. So I write my answer as a point. It's going to be 2, negative 3. All right, not too terrible. At least I hope it's not too terrible. Number 2, again, we got to look here and see, well, how could we cancel things and make it work out? And we look here, and I'm not seeing a nice and easy way to do that. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have to multiply the top and the bottom by something. One way that I like to think about this is I like to think about common denominators. So right now, I'm going to make the decision that we're going to cancel out our x's, right? It doesn't matter which one I picked. I just decided that I'm going to pick out my x's. If I had a fraction of 1/6 and 1/5, right, I grabbed my 6 from here and my 5 from here. I think about how could I get common denominators for these? Like say I was trying to add these together. What would my common denominator be? And you should be able to see that my common denominator would be 30. I have to multiply the left side by 5 over 5, multiply with the right side by 6 over 6. So I'm going to use that same idea here. The bottom one, I'm going to multiply by a 6. The top one, I'm going to multiply by a 5. What that's going to do is that's going to make my 5 times a negative 6 gives me 30, and a 6 times a negative 5 gives me a negative 30. Now you should notice that I said negative 30 both times. So what I'm also going to do, and here's a little bit of a trick to save a step, I'm going to multiply by a negative there. Now you might be able to see what that's going to do, but let's just work it through and see what happens. So my 5 times negative 6 gives me a negative 30x, and then I have 5 times a negative 6 again, and another negative 30. And then negative 18 times 5 gives me negative 90. The bottom one, I multiply by negative 6, I get a positive 30x. I get a negative 6 times 8 is negative 48y. Oop, I forgot to write a y in the top one. There it is. And then negative 6 times 24 gives me a negative 144. So I know that these numbers get kind of big, but as long as we have a calculator near, it should be just as easy. We look at our x's here. We have a negative 30x and a positive 30x. We can add those together and they go away. So my x goes away. My y is going to give me a negative 40, 50, 60, 70, negative 78y equals, what's that going to be equal? Negative 2, 3, 4. I divide both sides by negative 78, and I get y equals 3. All right. Again, I know that those numbers got pretty big, but we're doing the same process as what we've been doing in the past two sections. Well, this section and the previous. I plug my 3 into one of the equations. It really doesn't matter which one I pick. I'll use the top one because I feel like I use the bottom one all the time. So negative 6x minus 6 times 3 equals negative 18. So negative 6x minus 18 is negative 18. Negative 6x equals, what's that going to be? Is that 0? Yep, that is 0. And then x equals 0. So my answer, written as a point, will be 0, 3. All right, that's number 2. Just to review what we did in this problem, we had to start off by multiplying both equations by something, right? I had my negative 6 on top and my negative 5 on bottom, or in the bottom equation, and I multiplied them by 5 and negative 6 to make them be able to cancel. Let's see if number 3 is that hard. All right, number 3, again, it looks like we're going to have to multiply both sides. So you start off by just arbitrarily deciding which one it's going to be. Sometimes one is a slightly easier, but a lot of the time both of them are equally as hard. And if you have a calculator near, then they're going to be truly just as easy. Because while the numbers might get huge, our calculator doesn't care how big the numbers get. So I'm going to choose my x because they're listed first. I'm going to multiply the top one by 8 and the bottom one by 7. And what that's going to do is that's going to make the numbers in front of my x be the same after we're done. Let's look at it. 7 times 8, or 8 times negative 7 is negative 56x. And I'm going to have 64y plus, equals 144. The bottom, whenever I multiply through, I'm going to get a positive 56x. So see, they're going to be able to cancel. And then I'm going to have a negative 63y equals 7 times negative 20, gives me a negative 140. So now I can add those through. I get a 0x, I'm just not going to write it, that's going to be a positive 1y, and then that's going to be a positive 4. So y equals 4. You always go back to the original equations. So I either decide by the top original or the bottom original. I'm going to use the bottom original equation. So 8x minus 9 times 4 equals negative 20. 8x minus 36, is it 36? Yes, equals negative 20. 8x is going to be, what is that? Negative 20 plus 36 is 16, and x is 2. I write my answer as a point, and we got 2, 4. All right, there we are. Number 4. Again, we're going to have to multiply both of them because I'm not seeing a way to not do that. Let's do what do we want to do? Let's do the y's because I don't think I've done that yet. Let's multiply the top by 3 and the bottom by 2. And let's also make it a negative 2. That way we will have a positive on top and a negative on bottom. That way they'll cancel really nicely for us. So the top one, whenever I multiply by 3, I get a 30x plus 6y equals negative 36. The bottom one, whenever I multiply by negative 2, I'm going to get negative 8x minus 6y equals negative 8. I add those guys together. That gives me a, 22x, and then 0y, I'm just going to leave it off, equals, That's going to be negative 36 minus 8 gives me a negative 44. I divide by 22, and x is going to be negative 2. I pick an equation to plug it in. The bottom one has smaller numbers, so that's the one that I'm going to go with. Well, I don't know if it really has. Yeah, it does. So I've got 4x. Oops, I need to plug in my x. 4 times negative 2 plus 3y is 4. That gives me negative 8 plus 3y is 4. I add my 8 over, and 3y is 12, so y has to be 4. I write my answer as a point, and there we are. All right, number 5. Ooh. First thing we should notice is that these are not in line at all. So this makes it a little bit even harder still. We're going to have to put them in order first. It doesn't matter what order we put them in, they just have to be in an order, or a order. What I'm going to do is I think it would be most easy to make them both look like the bottom. So I'm going to move this negative 2x to the other side. So the top piece is going to turn into, what is he going to turn into? Actually, let's write this just below here. I'm going to have, actually, you know what? Let me write this a little bit differently. Let's move these guys to the right side. So I'm going to have 0 equals 5y plus 19 minus 2x. And the bottom stays the same, 0 equals negative 4y minus 12 plus 2x. All right, we see what I did here. I added 5y to both sides, and I added 19 to both sides. Now that we have this, we should be able to see that I have a negative 2x and a positive 2x. Those will cancel really nicely. So add them together. I'm going to have 0 equals y plus 7. And then my 2x's cancel. I subtract my 7, and I get negative 7 equals y. There we are. Now to finish it up, I need to plug in. I always go back to my original equations because it's less likely to mess up. I think you're less likely to mess up if you go back to the original. I'm going to use the top one. So I'm going to have, well, negative 5 times negative 7 minus 19 equals negative 2x. This gives me 35 minus 19 is 2x. This is 16 equals 2x, and x equals 8. So I really have the point 8, negative 7. All right. So again, what we had to do in number 5, we started off by rearranging the equations, and then we were able to just add together. So let's look at number 6. All right. Maybe we could make them both look like the bottom equation. The bottom equation is nice. It has 16 equals x, y. Right? I'm going to make the top one look like that. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to start off by, let me rewrite it just a little bit. I'll say 6y plus 20, my pen's messing up. 6y plus 24 equals 2x. I just flipped it over the equal sign. And then whenever it's like this, I can see very nicely that my y needs to move over. So I'm going to rewrite this as 24 equals 2x minus 6y. The bottom one stays the same. Negative 16 equals negative 2x plus 4y. All right. And this one, again, is really nice. It's set up with a positive 2 and a negative 2. So I could do that. I just get to add them together. That's going to give me 24 minus 16 gives me 8. And then 0x and negative 2y. So I get negative 4 is equal to y. I need to plug in my y to get an x. I'm going to use the top equation. And the reason I chose the top equation here is because I know I'm going to be getting an x. So I really would like an x equals. So I picked the equation that was closer to having an x equals. Again, both equations will give you the same answer. I'm just trying to be the lazy person and do it in the least amount of work, right? So 2x equals 6 times negative 4 plus 24. 2x equals, that's going to be negative 24 plus 24. So 2x is 0. All right, so we get 2x is 0, and that means that x is going to be 0. So my point is going to be 0, negative 4. All right, there we are. All right, last two problems. Ooh, awesome. This one's already in order for us. We need to start off by, well, we need to decide, are we going to cancel our x's or cancel our y's? It really doesn't matter which one we do. Let's do our y's. We could multiply, and we could get them both to be at 12, right? Yeah. If I multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 3, my y's, my 6y and my negative 4y, will both turn into a 12 and negative 12. So that gives me an 8x plus 12y is 20, and negative 15x minus 12y is 3 times negative 16 gives me a negative 48. Now I can just add those together. That gives me 8 minus 15 is negative 7x, 0y, and negative 28. I divide by negative 7 on both sides, and I get x equals 4. And then I go back to plug in. I think the top one would be slightly easier to plug into. So 4 times 4 plus 6y is 10. 16 plus 6y is 10. I subtract 16, and 6y is going to be negative 6, and y is going to be negative 1. I write my answer as a point, 4, negative 1. There we are. All right, number 8. This one, it could, what do I want to do? We could either cancel our x's or our y's. To cancel my x's, it looks like I'd need to multiply the bottom one by 7. To cancel my y's, it looks like I'd need to multiply the top by 3. I think it's easier to multiply by 3, so that's what I'm going to do. Multiply the top by 3. So I'm going to have 3 times 7 gives me 21x plus 9y equals negative 39. The bottom one is going to stay the same. I've got negative x minus 9y is 19. I add them together, and I get 20x and then 0y equals, what was that, negative 20? Yeah, I should have done that in my head. And x gives me a negative 1. I need to plug into one of the equations. I'll pick the bottom one. So I get negative 1 minus 9y is 19. So 1 minus 9y is 19. Negative 9y is 18, and y is negative 2. So to write that as a point, I have the point negative 1, negative 2. Oops. And there we are.